If you've known me for a while, you'll know that every time I finish a game that I have thoughts about, I'll immediately post a 5-paragraph essay in the general chat of my Discord server, essentially reviewing the game. It's something I've been doing for a while now, and every time I do it, I think to myself, damn, maybe I should do a review video. So, here we are, I guess? Although, I should mention that this video won't exactly be a review, but more of a video essay about one of my favorite games. And assuming I put in the title and thumbnail, you'll already know that I'm going to be talking about Sonic Adventure 2. This is a game that's near and dear to my heart, tied with Minecraft and Mario Kart Wii for my favorite game of all time. I mean, platformers are definitely my favorite genre of games, and lately I've realized that I definitely prefer 3D platforms to 2D. And out of the platformer genre, the Sonic series, with all of its ups and downs, has stood out to me. From the characters, to the stories, well, when they're good. But most of all, the speed. What can I say? I just think that going really fast is awesome. It's not something I can really explain, but I've just always loved the Sonic series for everything it does right. But you might be wondering, out of all of the games, why do I think SA2 is the best? Well, I guess the easiest place to start would be at the beginning.
In the beginning.
So, to start off, the first time I played this game was back when I had an Xbox 360. I just discovered the Xbox Live Store, and I proceeded to buy and play pretty much any Sonic game I could get my hands on. Oh, and Hydro Thunder Hurricane, for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure that SA2 might have even been the first Sonic game I got like this. By this point, I think I had played a few of the worst Sonic games, but now that I think about it, I don't think I had really played a mainline game, even though Unleashed, Colors, and Rush were all on consoles I owned. I would try to remember specifically what Sonic media I'd consumed up to that point, but if I tried to do that, I think I'd drive myself crazy. The point is, I hadn't played much Sonic, but I was somehow already hooked on the series. And if I'm being honest, SA2 was what sealed the deal for me. I mean, funnily enough, even though both were on the store, I played SA2 before I played SA1. I don't really remember my opinions on either game at the time, but I don't think they're really worth mentioning anyway, considering I was a dumb kid who liked Sonic 4 and Sonic Free Riders. It actually might surprise you to find out that I never actually beat SA2 at this time. I got stuck on Rouge's section of Cannon's Core because I didn't know what to do after you hit the time stop switch, and I never actually got past that point. But fast forward to a few years ago when I started using Dolphin Emulator to play a bunch of games that I either had never played before or remembered liking, and of course, SA2 was one of them. But for some reason, I think that when I played it this time, it was on mouse and keyboard for whatever reason. I mean, I have literally no idea why this happened, but I specifically remember playing either Eternal Engine or Tails' Cannon's Core on my keyboard. I don't really get it either, so don't ask. Whenever I finally got on Steam, though, was when I finally realized that this is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm currently almost at 100% completed save file, 2 achievements left, and I really want to see it through by the end of this year. And in case you're wondering, that's because I saw a tweet that said you're a loser if you don't have a certain amount of emblems by the time you turn 18, and looks like I have 3 months, so I can do it. But that's just how dedicated I am to this game now. So I guess you're probably wondering at this point why I like this game so much. But before I get into that, I'd like to be fair and unbiased here. So I'm gonna talk about the flaws of this game before I give it endless praise. Okay, so it's no secret that no game is perfect. especially a game that was made in 2001. Sonic Adventure 2 has its fair share of problems that are clear artifacts of the time it was made in. For example, the camera controls are very bad, especially for first-time players. Outside of the treasure hunting stages, the camera is pretty much an immovable object that's impossible to control, and even seems to have a mind of its own at some points. And even in said treasure hunting stages, it's still not the greatest. But again, this is just simply an artifact of the times, and isn't exactly a flaw with the adventure gameplay style. There's also, your standard old game jank, weird ledges, somewhat buggy physics, level geometry acting weird and killing your momentum, all that good stuff. And there's also the grind rail system being super janky, but I think if the system was ironed out, I think it would be more enjoyable than in the boost games, because it would actually take some skill to use the rails to properly gain speed. While experienced players such as myself can get around most of these flaws somewhat consistently, to new players who are used to more modern games that don't include as much jank, they can get screwed over by these issues pretty easily. But again, these are artifacts of the time that are to be expected. As for actual flaws with the gameplay itself, I can really only think of a few. Most levels are bangers in my opinion, with, 3 main exceptions. Mad Space, Final Chase, and Crazy Gadget. Mad Space is Rouge's final level in the Dark Story, and the only reason why it sucks is because of its nigh unplayably bad gravity mechanics. Let's just say that there's a reason why Mario Galaxy didn't come out until 2007. Once again, it's somewhat bearable if you know what you're doing, but it really takes the game's jank to the next level. Final Chase and Crazy Gadget, on the other hand, have a similar issue. They both have a gimmick that causes you to lose speed because of its unreliability. I mean, going fast should be a staple in every Sonic game, and while Final Chase seems to still be designed with this in mind, Crazy Gadget pretty much throws this out the window with sections where you're just plain forced to stop. Final Chase features these weird green pillars that Shadow skates around the surface of, and if you don't know how to use them or bypass them entirely, they're the most annoying thing in the world. You're basically supposed to go up and down them in a spiral shape by holding forward or backward, but in practice, it's just incredibly janky, hard to control, and unintuitive. They're designed with speed in mind, but it's another case of pretty good design idea being broken because the technology at the time just doesn't allow it to work. With Crazy Gadget, on the other hand, it features these stupid gravity switches. I mean, they work just fine, but the problem is you have to slow down, walk up to them, and press B to activate them. Simple enough, right? No. 2 main problems with this. The main gimmick of the level in a Sonic game should not be forcing you to slow down, and half the time the switch won't even activate because you're a pixel off, which sends you into a somersault. I literally installed a mod called Crazy Gadget But Fun by HoppyBoppyBunny, which makes the switches activate when you get near them. And honestly, it makes the level 10 times more enjoyable, so shout out to them. But again, other than that, every other level is pretty fantastic. Another thing that I and many other players have a problem with is the kart racing levels, which are just, why are they even here? The mechanics just kinda suck, and there's absolutely no reason for the levels to exist in the first place. The turning mechanics are really weird, forcing you to release the A button for a second to basically just start swerving all over the place rather than basically going in a straight line. I mean, it feels icier than when you're in a low traction vehicle in any Mario Kart game. Now, here's kind of a big one. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like this game because of the shooting stages and the treasure hunting stages. Well, I personally find them to be fun, but I can acknowledge the flaws with them in that they're not your traditional Sonic levels where speed is rewarded. The main place where I see the issue is the shooting stages. Again, I don't dislike them, but they just don't follow the design principles of Sonic games, where doing better gets you a reward that makes your experience more fun. In the action stages, and even as far back in the classic games as Sonic 1, doing stuff with the right timing and skill opens up faster and more fun pathways. Like I said, speed is a reward in Sonic games, and that's how it should be. The issue here is, what do the shooting stages count as doing better, and what's the reward for doing that? Well, I mean, the answer to the first question is pretty simple. The game just wants you to lock onto a bunch of enemies at once and destroy them in one shot to rack up a combo. But what's the reward? Besides getting more points, nothing. If you're a casual player who's not sweating their ass off to get an A rank, you probably won't care too much about this and just spam the B or X button to shoot at each enemy individually because you have no incentive to do anything else. I don't have much to say about the treasure hunting stages in this regard because I think it's a pretty well designed gameplay style. So, can I stop shitting on my favorite game now? Please?
I'm the coolest.
Alright. Writing that flaws section felt like it took forever, which isn't a great sign, but I'll try to put as much effort into the actual love as I did with the tough love. After all, I'm trying to convince people that SA2 is the best Sonic game here, so I have to try hard to surpass that last section. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard though, because despite its flaws, there's a lot of good in this game. For one, SA2 is the perfection of the adventure formula. I'll be talking about this in more detail later in the video when I compare it to SA1 and other games, but for now, I can say this. SA2 captures the meaning of speed being a reward perfectly. In the action stages, when you're going fast, you feel like you've done something right and it feels good. If you see some minor detail that you missed, some secret that's hidden in plain sight, you immediately think, oh shit, how did I miss that? And what can I do to get it? A few great examples are, let's say, the item capsules above the ramps in City Escape, and the 2 ramps in the truck section, and the item balloons under Green Forest bungee jump section. And some of these rewards go even further than just an item, opening up whole new sections of a level that allow you to go faster and do cooler stuff. I mean, the entire upper path on the bridge near the end of Radical Highway comes to mind. Oh, and who could forget the rocket at the end of Metal Harbor? It's basically the definition of what I'm trying to say here. You get to the section, the timer starts counting down, you start running up the ramp. You get to the rocket with a second or two to spare, but there's still plenty of room to climb higher on the rocket. You know you're going to need to come back here and figure out how to do that. With the idea that you can do better, freshen your mind on your first playthrough, plus 4 extra missions per level, the replay value is immense. The game's story is also one of the best in the series. I'd say maybe Shadow's story in 06 or maybe Unleashed could be better, but despite how totally out there and crazy the story is, it has spots for emotion and depth, like when Sonic is presumed dead by all of his friends, and the whole thing with Shadow and Maria and Gerald Robotnik. Other than that, it's a crazy adventure, no pun intended, that proves that a Sonic game can have a lighthearted tone and bizarre plot, while still being kinda dark. I'm also a pretty big fan of the multiple perspective story, and I think SA2 did it incredibly well as opposed to SA1, Heroes, and Shadow's game. But I think 06 would have beat it if the overall story was better in general. Despite the aforementioned flaws in the shooting gameplay, all of the characters have solid abilities, and the upgrade system is pretty cool as well. Again, this just adds to the replay value, which is something I feel like a lot of games are missing nowadays. I mean, even if you're not aiming for all A ranks or 100% completion, you still have a reason to come back to some of the levels for the upgrades alone. I mean, the only exception is probably Mystic Melody, which you can get for all the characters, and it's only used for the Lost Chow missions. And, Magic Hands for Sonic, which is literally useless. I actually have no idea why it's there. Speaking of Chow, a lot of people really love the Chow Garden, and I don't blame them. It's a nice break from gameplay that integrates with the rest of the game seamlessly. And while it's a bit too grindy for my taste if you want to get all the emblems for the races and karate, it's a solid addition that many people really love. Another thing that I really love about the game is just how cool it is aesthetically. I mean, everything about it just screams what Sonic was designed to be, a cooler version of Mario. From the tricks you can do going off ramps to the concept of the grind rail system, even just the game's art is cool. And yeah, sure, that's subjective, but come on, just look at it. Look at it. How is this not cool? I think one of the most underrated parts of the game is the multiplayer. Every now and then, I force some of my friends to try it, and it's just always hilarious. It has its flaws, of course, such as shortened levels and the abilities being absolutely overpowered, but it's still a lot of fun, and I think more platformers should include multiplayer modes, and better ones at that. I think I'm probably forgetting a few things here and there, but last but not least, I absolutely have to talk about the soundtrack. Easily the best in the series. I don't think I could even name a totally bad track, just the ones you get sick of by association, like the kart racing track. I mean, if I had to name some favorites, I'd say my top 5 are Keys the Ruin, Supporting Me, EGGMAN, Live and Learn, Master the Desert, Shut Up Faker, Pseudo... That's more than 5, isn't it? Look, the point is, I really love the soundtrack for this game. So basically, I really think the pros of this game greatly outweigh the cons of it being old in ways I just can't articulate easily through words. Let's see. I guess I can't really talk about Sonic Adventure 2 without talking about its predecessor, Sonic Adventure. Let me make one thing perfectly clear first. Sonic did not have a rocky transition into 3D. Do not listen to the Game Grumps about anything. They do not know how to play video games. Now that that's out of my system, let's get into the comparisons. SA1 is also a very good game, and it's effectively Sonic's version of Mario 64, a courageous leap into the third dimension. It did a lot of things right, and had its fair share of jank. I mean, in fact, even within the first level, it's pretty easy to encounter some game-breaking bugs that just clip you through the map.
Bruh.
However, I feel like the amount of glitches in SA1 is pretty equal to those in Mario 64. That game definitely has its fair share of glitches, such as the infamous BLJ, as well as your fair share of glitches, skips, and soft blocks. So, if you're gonna point the rocky transition argument at Sonic, you're gonna have to point it at Mario too. Although, rocky or not, SA1 was definitely a transition. I mean, you can really see that in places like the aesthetics or the fact that previous locations are present along with new ones. Certain things were carried over from the classic games, which is especially apparent in the sound design and some of the art. It doesn't have that cool factor that SA2 has within the gameplay and some of the art. The story is still on point, even though some of the alternate stories are way too short, which is why I think SA2 does the alternate story systems better. I also definitely prefer SA2's soundtrack, although tracks like Be Cool, Be Wild, Be Groovy, Gamma's Theme, Final Egg, and of course Open Your Heart are pretty good. I hate to keep coming back to the Mario 64 comparison, but based on my knowledge of Super Mario Sunshine, I think SA2 succeeded where Sunshine failed in surpassing the previous game.
It's no use!
So, now the question is, what about any other Sonic games? Well, first of all, I don't think I really have to talk about Sonic Heroes, because while its gameplay isn't awful, it's not really a standard Sonic formula. Shadow the Hedgehog tried to make the adventure gameplay edgier to suit the tone of the game, and somewhat improved on some of the aspects of gameplay, such as with the triangle jump, but really botched the story system with the fantastic idea to make you play Westopolis, 30, 40 times? Then, with those two out of the way, I guess it's time for the elephant in the room. Sonic 06. Full disclosure, I've only played what's available of this game through Chaos X's Project 06, which is a PC port of the game made from the ground up that fixes a lot of the issues with it. I'll leave a link in the description, so go check it out. Anyway, from what I've played, 06 gameplay is very similar to adventure gameplay in a lot of ways, but it just feels different. I can't explain why, but I expect it's a product of less slippery and more modern controls, and being on an entirely different engine. It's also missing a lot of that cool factor I mentioned before that's so key to SA2, but it tries to replace it with what I'd call a more cinematic, epic factor. Of course, these aren't the main reasons why 06 is worse. I mean, if you've ever heard of the game, you'll likely already know what those are. However, with the adventure era out of the way, I'd like to proceed to the real main point of this section. Why the adventure formula is better than the boost formula. Now, before I say anything else, I just have to disclose that I've never played Sonic Unleashed or Sonic Colors, but I've beaten Generations twice and Forces once. If you've been paying attention so far, you might be able to guess what my main issue with the boost games is. In Sonic games, speed is supposed to be a reward, not a press X to win button. Plus, we've seen over the years that the boost gameplay gets less and less engaging as time goes on, dropping the alternate pathways that Sonic levels have always been known for, and slapping more boring, slow 2D sections into what's supposed to be a 3D game. Once again, Unleashed gets a lot of praise, despite being a 2.5D boost game, so I will accept that it may in fact be the exception. I also must admit that I enjoyed both Rush games and Colors DS, and it's because of this that I think I'm going to conclude that boost gameplay should stay in the second dimension with 2D stages that are actually built for it.
For the future of the world, I will destroy you!
So, with the ever-moving flow of time consuming us all, one must always be looking into the future. Many people suspect that a remake of the adventure games is in the works, and many others hope for a new game using the adventure formula. And while I'm not sure how likely either of these things are based on what we know about the recently teased upcoming game, I'd like to at least talk about my thoughts on both these possibilities. First, if SA2 were to be remade, what would I want changed? Well, if I'm being honest, not much. I mean, the gameplay and the levels are almost entirely solid already. I think being on a fresh, modern engine and a fresh coat of paint is all the game really needs. Just fix the grind rail physics, mad space, final chase, and the general level geometry jank, and you've got yourself a great game. If I were to add in anything as well, maybe some levels featuring Amy or Metal Sonic throughout the Hero and Dark stories in places where they would make sense. Although, that idea mostly applies to Amy because she's actually a featured character in the story. Otherwise, I think with the amount of times that Green Hill has been rehashed, we deserve a different 100% completion award. I also like the idea of a bonus episode that explains what the hell happened between Shadow's certain death and whatever happens in Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog. A slight rebalance of the Shao Garden may be in order, and possibly an expansion of the multiplayer mode as well. Other than that, there's not much else I'd do in a remake of SA2, but what about another adventure-style game? Like I've probably already said, I think the formula peaked in SA2, so not much needs changing on that front. I think incorporating characters like Tangle and Whisper into a reworked combat-based gameplay type, and keeping Knuckles, Rouge, and the Chaotix in their roles as treasure hunters would be cool, while shifting characters like Tails into the action stages. Speaking of the action stages, there is one thing that I'd change. There's a really phenomenal fan game out there called Sonic GT, which uses momentum-based mechanics in a wide-open 3D space. Something that does really well, that I think would also work in an adventure formula, is the improved bounce bracelet. It retains Sonic's momentum and gives him more height than he had before. It's really a lot of fun to mess around with. It's a great way to keep your speed up, which is honestly a problem that 3D Sonic games have always had. But besides bringing back a plethora of playable characters, there's really not much else I'd change about the formula. Well, that's pretty much all I have to say. If you made it this far, I'd like to personally thank you for watching. This game and the series are things that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I put a lot of effort into making this video. In fact, I might as well mention that I love this game so much that I'm basing the game that I'm trying to create off of it. I'm calling it the Emerald Project for now, no relation to the Chaos Emeralds, and I'm really looking at how Freedom Planet was based off Sonic 3 for inspiration. Oh, and before I forget, no YouTube video is complete without a humble request for you to leave a comment. If you do have any feedback, smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more, as I'm hoping to do videos somewhat similar to this in the future. I'd like to give a special thanks to my friend Marcus for editing this video and my friend Zach for helping me out with the script. I seriously couldn't have done this without them. I'll link their stuff down in the description, as well as anything or anyone else I mentioned. Well, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.